Deep within a lush valley, nestled near a bustling forest, resided a wealthy landlord. He owned acres of land, but his most prized possession was his magnificent garden. It was a sight to behold, filled with rows of vibrant flowers, plump fruits, and the sweetest vegetables. The landlord spent hours admiring his garden, his heart swelling with pride. Each day, he would stroll through the neatly organized paths, inhaling the fragrant air. He would often invite his wealthy friends to marvel at his garden, boasting about the exotic plants and the diligent gardener who tended to them. The gardener was an honest and hardworking man, dedicated to keeping the garden in pristine condition. The landlord, though fond of his garden, was not a kind man. He believed that work never ceased, and thus, he never gave his gardener a day off. The gardener yearned for a break, a moment to rest his weary muscles and soothe his aching back. But the landlord's demands were relentless. Every day, the gardener would wake up before the sun peeked over the horizon. He would water the plants, prune the bushes, and keep the pesky insects at bay. He worked tirelessly, his brow slick with sweat, his hands roughened by the constant toil. Despite the gardener's dedication, a wave of despair washed over him. The annual temple festival was approaching, a joyous occasion filled with music, dance, and vibrant celebrations. It was the one day the entire village eagerly anticipated, a time for families to come together and offer thanks for the year's harvest. The gardener longed to witness the spectacle, to immerse himself in the festivities that he had only heard about from others. He yearned to offer his prayers at the temple and partake in the communal feast. Yet he was trapped by his obligations to the landlord and his precious garden. The gardener knew the landlord would never grant him leave, especially during the festival season. The landlord would scoff at the mere suggestion, claiming that the garden needed constant attention. The gardener was torn between his duty and his desire to experience the joy of the festival. Days turned into nights, and the festival drew closer. The gardener's heart grew heavier with each passing moment. He couldn't shake off the image of the vibrant celebration, the laughter of children and the rhythmic beat of the drums. He knew he had to find a way to attend the festival, but how could he leave the garden unattended? One afternoon, as the gardener was tending to a patch of lilies, a troop of monkeys descended from the nearby forest. They were a mischievous bunch, known for their playful antics and their love for ripe fruits. The gardener had often chased them away from the garden, fearing they would devour the landlord's precious produce. However, today, an idea sparked in the gardener's mind. He had heard tales of monkeys being quite clever, capable of mimicking human actions. If he could somehow communicate his needs to the monkeys, perhaps they could help him out. The gardener cautiously approached the monkeys, his heart pounding with a mix of hope and apprehension. He showed them how to use the watering cans, mimicking the actions of scooping water from the well and gently pouring it onto the plants. The monkeys, their curiosity piqued, observed him with keen interest. Section 4. A deal with the monkeys. The gardener, mustering all his courage, decided to strike a deal with the monkeys. He pointed towards the watering cans, then towards the plants, and finally towards himself. With gestures and expressions, he tried to convey that he needed their help to water the garden for just one day, the day of the festival. To his surprise, the monkeys seemed to understand. They chattered amongst themselves, their eyes darting back and forth between the gardener and the gardening tools. The gardener's heart leaped with hope. It appeared they were agreeable to his plan. Relieved and excited, the gardener spent the rest of the day showing the monkeys the ropes. He demonstrated how much water each plant needed, how to avoid stepping on the delicate seedlings, and how to work the well. The monkeys, surprisingly adept learners, mimicked his actions with enthusiasm, their playful nature momentarily subdued by the responsibility entrusted to them. Section 5. Monkey business in the garden. Finally, the much-awaited day of the festival arrived. The gardener, his heart brimming with excitement and a tinge of apprehension, took one last look at his monkey helpers. They seemed eager and ready to take on their task. With a mix of hope and anxiety, the gardener left for the festival, praying that he had made the right decision. Initially, the monkeys followed the gardener's instructions diligently. They filled the watering cans and went about watering the plants, their tails swishing with pride. However, their monkey instincts soon took over. They began to find amusement in splashing water on each other, turning the garden into their personal water park. The neatly lined plants were soon forgotten as the monkeys engaged in a boisterous water fight. Water splashed everywhere, drenching some plants while leaving others completely dry. The once orderly garden was now a chaotic mess, with puddles of water forming on the pathways and leaves drooping from the excessive watering. Section 6. A harsh lesson learned. As the sun began to set, the gardener returned from the festival. His heart was light with the joy of the celebrations, his ears still ringing with the echoes of music and laughter. As he approached the garden, he expected to be greeted by the sight of his well-maintained plants, tended to by his diligent monkey helpers. Instead, he was met with a scene of utter chaos. The garden was in ruins. Plants were uprooted, their roots exposed to the harsh sun. The pathways were flooded, and the delicate flowers were trampled underfoot. The monkeys, exhausted from their day of work, were nowhere to be seen. The gardener stood there, his heart sinking as he surveyed the destruction. The landlord's prized garden, the one he had poured his heart and soul into maintaining, was ruined. It was a harsh lesson learned. The gardener realized that in his eagerness to attend the festival, he had made a grave mistake by trusting the monkeys with his responsibilities. The gardener learned that one should never depend on others to do their work, especially when the helpers were a bunch of playful monkeys. It was a lesson learned the hard way, but a valuable lesson nonetheless.